Where were we? Oh yeah, Daigo's American football players had overdosed on drugs. I wonder how that's gonna turn out. So people are getting murdered everywhere, and because Ape Man is a superhero, even though he's a gritty 90s superhero, he does have to show up and save the day. Then a nearby girl gets murdered before he can save her, and this triggers Hazama's latent PTSD, bringing his personality to the surface and utterly breaking the safety measures that Ape Man had in place. If only there was some way to prevent this. Anyway, because Hazama's personality has now corrupted Ape Man's, Hazama is trying to murder all the black fighters, including Sam's dad. He goes about this painfully slowly though, so slowly that it's incredibly obvious they were either padding for time or were trying to make it more dramatic than it needed to be. After an unnecessary amount of toying around, he knocks Sam out of the way and then goes in for a death blow, finally. Just as O'Connor starts to recognize his son. That kinda sucks. But predictably, as is everything in this anime, Sachiko decides to step in and prevent Hazama from murdering everyone with his newfound Ape-Man powers. The idea of a human body being used as a host for a cyborg personality and the human personality coming to the surface through PTSD even though it was supposed to have been deleted is kinda cool. Predictable, but pretty neat. The new messed up Hazama Ape-Man hybrid recognizes Sachiko as someone who isn't a threat, immediately stops trying to murder everyone, and then he walks away.
Wait! Where are you going? What have you done with Azuma-san?
So Ape-Man goes to the professor and tells him, "Hey, I fucked up and almost murdered a ton of people." And the professor tells Ape-Man to his face, "Well, that's a glitch in your system. Hazuma's personality could resurface at any time, and you could end up murdering a whole ton of people." Ape-Man understandably doesn't take this too well, starts to have a bit of an identity crisis, being told that he was part of the problem.
Somehow, you managed to override that safety device.
It was my fault? That's news to me. What was I supposed to have done?
Possibly something you weren't even aware of. Some sort of trigger hidden deep in your memories.
You're not making this any clearer.
I think I mentioned before the problems that arise when human emotions are introduced into a cyborg system. It's to be expected that mixing the logical with the illogical leads to instability. The most carefully designed system in the world can become totally unpredictable when contaminated by emotion.
And then we get a pretty cool, if overly dramatic, representation of PTSD flashbacks in action.
Glitch in the system, glitch in the system, glitch in the glitch in the system, glitch in the system. It was you who ran amok. You were the system failure. Something inside of you made the cyborg overreact.
The final flashback we get shows us Hazuma's showdown with Tony Gleck, and a train's about to run them both over, but Hazama decides he'll just jump out of the way and let the train hit Tony. Seems like a pretty simple plan, but you know, whatever works. We also learned that Sam managed to escape the carnage with his dad, O'Connor, and it's kind of shocking that both Sachiko and Hazama didn't bother to look for Sam and make sure he wasn't in danger with his drug-addled cyborg dad. There's a really good scene where Ape-Man returns home and tries to drown his sorrows in alcohol, while Sachiko tells him how horrible Ape-Man is. But midway through drinking his alcohol, he has a moment of realization that alcohol does nothing anymore. And it's so good.
It's gonna be alright, he just needs a little rest. Jeez, look what they've done to him. They cut off his arms and legs. feelings. When I find out who did this to my old man, they're gonna pay.
Ape-Man decides the most logical thing is to tie O'Connor to the bed so that way O'Connor won't freak out when he realizes he doesn't have access to his drugs anymore. There's a brief non-argument about it, but the real reason this scene exists is so that way Sam can say Ape-Man is the one who deserves to be tied up, not his dad. And I get he's a stupid kid, but his dad was exactly as dangerous as Ape-Man, if not more so it's kinda weird to use this scene to make you feel even worse for Ape-Man's identity crisis, when there were plenty of valid reasons for that already. While Sam is crying, Sachiko and Ape-Man stand around and theorize who might be behind the Black Fighters going nuts. And they say it's probably Mr. Halloween, and the Black Fighters run by Daigo. Do you know who Mr. Halloween is yet? Have you got yet? Did you figure it out yet? Because the anime really, really wants you to know that Mr. Halloween is Daigo. Oh, and speaking of Daigo, the very next scene takes place in Mr. Halloween's hideout. Daigo shows up and sees Tony Gleck watching news of Daigo's numerous failures on a giant TV, primarily the fact that the Black Fighters went nuts and almost killed people. Then we're introduced to a mysterious board that apparently has some connection to Daigo, but we don't know who they are or what significance they have, we just know they're really important. Daigo tries to mess up Tony by pressing that button that gives Tony a painful shock, but it turns out that Tony had that button deactivated, which means there's someone else besides Mr. Halloween behind building the cyborgs. Someone who may have gone missing from Biotechno that Hazama was looking for at the start of the anime. Anyway, Daigo gets fired and dragged off, and then Tony Gleck approaches the board of people of unknown significance, but they are definitely significant because the tone implies that. And he's like, I guess I'm the new boss now. And one of the guys is like, wait, hey, who made you the boss? And then Tony is like, aha, well, you see, I happen to have a knife inside of my arm. Pew! And then the guy dies. So that's that, I guess. Screw guns, that guy has a knife in his arm, he's not to be messed with.
Listen, Doc, I don't know whose body this is anymore, mine or his. I think I may be losing control.
Hazama, get a hold of yourself.
I've been drinking for hours, and I'm stone cold sober.
You know, so if you're trying to build up Hazama and Ape-Man as different people, which is crucial to the story and Ape-Man's identity crisis and Hazama's PTSD breaking through to Ape-Man, you really shouldn't have the character's dead name Ape-Man as Hazama. It's just a little weird. I know that's something real people might do, but it's pretty confusing for the audience. Then we transition to Tony getting some character development. He sits in a bed, injects cybomecamine, and leans back and hallucinates committing mass murder. He's a really deep and complex character, you see. He likes drugs and guns a whole lot. It's such a weird scene, it just establishes that Tony's an utter asshole in every way. He thinks murder is good.